Hello, fellow YouTubers. Before I begin my countdown, I'd like to announce the beginning of a new series on this channel that I will call the Tuesday Tirade. In it, I'll take 5 minutes to go off the handle about a specific topic, whatever that topic is that week. Maybe it'll be something like Nuketown appearing again in the new Call of Duty game, A-Rod breaking all sorts of records, or Rock Band 4 soundtrack looking like garbage. So subscribe for that. The first episode will be up on the 22nd. This video is all about the best wrestling feuds I've ever seen. A great feud is a feud that captivates the audience and boosts the profile of all superstars involved. One of my favorites of this variety is Undertaker vs. Edge from back in 2008. The Undertaker was and always will be my favorite wrestler, without a doubt. He was the guy who got me into the show, and Edge was really gaining my respect by this point. They both could go, had unique characters that weren't really mistakable for anyone else's. When the feud began, it didn't seem like it'd be that great. But then it kicked into high gear. Edge was absolutely, literally on fire at this point. Between him, La Familia, and Vicky Guerrero, there were almost insurmountable odds for The Undertaker. Standout moments for this feud include their match at WrestleMania that year, Undertaker being brought back by Vicky Guerrero, and the ban of the Hell's Gate move. Just a great feud that boosted everyone involved, in my opinion. Back in 2009, my interest in WWE was wavering. I'm sure not many people would argue that this wasn't exactly a banner year for the company. But at the beginning of the year, my hopes were very high due to one feud in particular, which was Triple H and Randy Orton. By this point in time, I had started following the backstage rumors, and found it very odd that they refused to mention the game was married to Stephanie McMahon. I mean, most everybody knew. I remember thinking who would win the Rumble that year, and not really having a definitive answer until the Raw before the Rumble, when Orton snapped and punted Vince McMahon in the head. Now, by this point, you knew Orton was going to win the Rumble. He had too much momentum going. I wasn't sure if the company would go with this feud, but they did. Even though it wasn't the first time these two had feuded, this one was epic. Some standout moments are when Orton forced the King of Kings to watch him as he kissed Stephanie, his real-life wife. Triple H breaking into Orton's house, and the return of Shane O'Mac. The saddest part, though, is that this feud would, should, and could have been epic, but sadly is totally forgotten due to the greatness of Shawn and Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. Once in a while, a feud comes along between two of your favorites, and you know it's going to be great, whether the story is poor or great. Some might think of Hogan and Warrior, or Austin versus The Rock, but I personally think Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho in 2008. My freaking goodness, this was great. If you remember, this feud started with Vince threatening Ric Flair. You lose, you're fired, which led to the epic battle at WrestleMania 24. Good match, great storytelling. But the feud takes off from there with the white-hot heel Jericho claiming Michaels enjoyed ending Flair's career, didn't respect Flair. Then he claims that Shawn Michaels faked a knee injury to beat Batista at Backlash. By this point, the feud is set up to be one of the best feuds of the decade already. But then it happened. The best moments, without a doubt, are when Jericho threw Michaels' head through the Jeritron, when Jericho clocked Shawn's wife for real, and the insane heat Jericho got immediately afterwards. If you go back and watch, the crowd just turns on him, just like that. In modern WWE, nobody could get this kind of heat if they tried. And as a person who was a big fan of both guys at that point, two storytelling masters, two ring generals, and a great story behind them that needs to be told, and the fans are heavily invested in the feud. My God, this feud couldn't have been any more epic at all, period. The sign of a true heel in WWE is the ability to get any babyface over. Sometimes we, as more serious fans, don't buy into a certain face. The heel's job is to unite the fans with the face, and no feud has ever done that for me personally quite like my number 2 feud of all time. Jeff Hardy versus CM Punk. As I had previously mentioned, by this point in time, I was becoming a heel mark, and I knew about Jeff's drug issues. I had liked CM Punk for a while, since his work with John Morrison in ECW, but this feud just took it to another level. Punk basically calling Hardy out for being a drug addict, which I knew was true. Yet the fans cheered Jeff anyway. So you immediately have to get behind CM Punk in a weird way. By the end of the feud, I gained respect for both guys. You were blurring the lines, really. CM Punk was the good guy, but he was also the bad guy. Jeff Hardy, in theory, was the bad guy, but he was being cheered like the good guy, and not in a John Cena kind of way. They both pulled together and made an otherworldly, compelling story based on who they are behind the scenes, whether the fans knew it or not. You wanted to cheer Jeff because he was living in the moment, but you knew CM Punk was right. Incredible feud, and I say that as a person who wasn't a Jeff Hardy fan, not really ever a fan of his, never was the biggest CM Punk fan. Liked the guy, but a lot of his stories weren't really that compelling to me. Without a doubt, the best feud either guy ever had, and it's not even close. Cena and Punk, not even remotely as good. I don't care what anybody else says about that. Since I started watching wrestling back in about 2003-ish, there was one feud that gripped me and refused to let go. It featured two Hall of Famers, without question. It headlined a WrestleMania. It was the embodiment of a friends-turned-enemy storyline. It took backstage elements and brought them to the forefront. But most of all, it stands a test of time. The feud itself lasted years and stands firmly as my favorite feud ever. And that feud is Shawn Michaels and Triple H. When I started watching WWE, The Undertaker was my guy, but Raw was being run by the game. When Trips turned on Michaels, it was a heartbreaking moment. Not that I watched it, but in the promo Triple H has, saying that Michaels left him, but he grabbed his ball and took it higher than the Heartbreak Kid ever did. It was amazing. They feuded for so long, and it truly made me love both guys at a point where I was just getting into wrestling. You had a feud that was building my interest in two guys where there's so many supporting characters. It's just great. Back in 2008, I made a video about my favorite wrestlers, and both guys were in my top 3 because this feud established both guys as legends in my eyes. Whether you like them or not, this feud was perfection. It was wrestling at its finest, and that is storytelling. And it's a feud I will never forget, a feud that most likely will never ever be topped in my head. If you're still watching, I want to say a few things real fast. For one, comment with some of your favorite feuds. Also, if you were wondering where the quintessential feuds are, like Austin and McMahon or Hogan and Andre, keep in mind this video is feuds I've seen unfold. I didn't start watching until 2003. Before I stop this, I want to suggest you leaving me questions on my Ask FM page. Like the video if you stayed this long, and subscribe to see more content from the Great Mudlup. Peace out, home skillets.